Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Coming Up Next. Whether you're streaming or downloading the show, I am very grateful for your listenership, and if this is your first time tuning in, you can find the entire back catalogue of Coming Up Next podcast rambles as we approach 3 years. That's a lot of rambles, and they're all available at comingupnext.com.au, where you can also find iTunes, Stitcher and Podbean links, so you can subscribe to the show, and then from now on you'll get it in your pocket each and every week. Big thank you to my guest last week, to Anna Brownfield, for coming on the show and talking about her journey as a feminist erotic filmmaker. Unique point of view on the filmmaking industry and process, and you can check that out as well at, you got it, comingupnext.com.au. Goran Stolevski is my guest this week. Goran won the jury prize at Sundance this year, just gone, for his short film, Would You Look at Her? He's got another short debuting at the Sydney Film Festival, which is coming up soon. We speak about both of those. We talk about being a writer for TV. We talk about directing in the last season of Nowhere Boys. We talk about the usual philosophical musing/ramblings. So let's get into it right now. Coming up next with Goran Stolevski.
No, I need something that like takes up 14 hours of my brain space every day for like a solid 3 months to solve it. Like I just sort of, I mean, the script I finished 2 days ago, I've been kind of on and off. It's been a year and a half, but like it's usually like a solid. Before it was a treatment, which took about 2 or 3 weeks, and then like the actual writing of the drafts took about a month. And it was always, even when I wasn't doing it, it's always at the back of my head, and it was kind of the driving force. And I knew, if I got up in the morning, if there's no meetings or things, I had that to sort of shape my day. And night, like I can, easily spend 12 hours just doing that sometimes. But now I wake up and I'm like, oh, all this free time all of a sudden. It's so disorienting. So, yeah.
I guess coming off the back of, is this a feature that you've just finished writing the script
for?
Yeah.
The 10th one I finished writing.
Right, the 10th one. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess coming off the back of that, coming off the back of directing a block for Nowhere Boys, and the kind of high you were probably riding from being at Sundance as well.
Yeah.
Sort of, you would just come to a kind of grinding halt, or like a kind of crash, wouldn't you? Because it's not like it's kind of incrementally going down. It's just like one day it all stops. Basically,
yeah. No, like, because I flew even before Sundance. I was doing the preparation meetings for Nowhere Boys at the same time as I was editing the short film for Lexus that's going to premiere in Sydney. And I finished that film like Friday night, and then Saturday morning I flew out to LA. And then moved on to Sundance 3 days later. And then from Park City, I flew back into Melbourne on like whatever date it was. I arrived in the morning. I was in the production office for Nowhere Boys in the afternoon. And then that gig continued through to, pre-production and then filming in post. And then as soon as it was over, I pretty much had like, a month to finish a feature screenplay and also start it. It was just a treatment at that stage. I finished that 2 days ago. It was actually due end of the month, so I beat the deadline. So technically I could, pretend I'm still working on it, but it's finished. So now I don't even know what day of the week it is, but I know Tuesday I woke up and I was like, all right, so what do I do now?
Yeah.
I haven't had this in 5 months. I just, it's funny.
Yeah. And I guess It seems to me that you're the sort of creative who just kind of obsesses over their craft. And
Oh,
their
that
work.
comes across quickly, does it? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just from looking at your body of work, you've made 24 short films.
25. That was the 25th. Yeah.
Right.
The one I finished the night before. Yeah, no. The Sundance one was the 24th. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So the Lexus one was the 25th?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and
lost, I hope, but yeah.
I mean, in a career that's 12 years old, although that probably feels like a long time to you. I mean, I don't know too many people who've been as prolific to make 25 shorts and write 10 features, as well as probably a myriad of other jobs that you've done.
Yeah. I mean, mostly the jobs were unrelated to the film industry. I haven't actually... the first time I got paid for writing and directing was... yeah, I mean, apart from doing like little note-taker gigs in writers' rooms, the first time I actually paid to direct anything was Nowhere Boys. And the first time I paid to write something was this screenplay. It was the Screen Australia grant.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other stuff I was doing was actually day jobs most of the time. Completely unrelated to filmmaking. So
You worked in a video shop?
I did. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow, Julia stole you all my secrets. Our mutual friend. Yes, I did work in a video shop.
Video Easy? I assume that was like last year.
And, no, that was 2005. Yeah, that was when I was second year in university. But what was eerie is then I made friends recently with someone who works at Matchbox Pictures. She was an assistant, I guess. And she's a writer herself and filmmaker, and she's amazing. But yeah, no, we were kind of like, we realized we ran into each other a year ago, so we kind of knew each other. But then like it gradually emerged that she was also one of my customers at Video Easy Rosanna in 2005 as a 10-year-old. And she remembered me from that time. I mean, I unfortunately did not remember her, but like, yeah, so that I've spent so much more time talking about Video Easy Rosanna in the last few weeks than I have like in 10 years. It's funny. But yeah, that was one of the day jobs. Yeah. And I remember once actually, it was, I think my third year major production, and like we just finished filming it and it was all on like one tape, all the footage, and like I had to go pretty much on set, from set straight to work, which was also in Rosanna. But yeah, and like I stored my bag in the place where, you know, the separate section that we had for stuff that we would, you know, where we would storage for like our stuff. I don't know why I can't speak English all of a sudden. But yeah, there's a guy, I caught a guy trying to steal my bag with the, you know, all the footage on it, which was, you know, months and months worth of work. So yeah, that's what I just remembered about Video Easy Rosanna. I almost would have had to start again. And it was a massive production at the time.
You probably thought it was like some new film that you just couldn't get on the shelf.
I don't know what he was thinking. I'm pretty sure he was in a desperate state.
Right.
Because really, to be stealing the backpack of like a 20-year-old Video Easy clerk, I'm like,
yeah,
there was really nothing of value to anyone else in the world in there. But that's what I just remembered about Video Easy Rosanna. I haven't thought about that in 10 years either.
Yeah.
We're going deep, man.
We are getting deep quickly.
Yeah.
You're from Macedonia originally.
Yes. It's
So
another
you seem
thing
very
that like
disenchanted by
no,
this.
it's not. I mean, you know, I'm not disenchanted by my Macedonian specifically. It's just again something I don't really concentrate on in my day-to-day life, except it comes up now a lot when I'm doing interviews for things.
Right.
Because I guess people are always looking for the thing that sort of
Point of
defines you or
difference.
sets you apart. Yeah. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time talking about Macedonianness that, you know, I hadn't for ages. But yeah, no, I am from Macedonia. And to be fair, the film that went to Sundance was a Macedonian production that I shot over there. So that's another reason I've had to be talking about my Macedonianness a lot.
Yeah, right. Was that the first production that you did over there?
Yeah, it was. Hopefully not the last. Waiting to hear back about a feature there now. But yeah, that was the first time.
And how old were you when you moved over to Australia?
I was 12 when I came here, but I go back a lot, and definitely used to when I was younger. But I was living in the UK for 2 years as well recently, and you know, I went to Macedonia, obviously partly because I was making a film there, but yeah, it doesn't. It feels like I never left sometimes, and sometimes it feels like I never lived there at all. So yeah, I have a 9-day maximum most of the time. After 9 days in that country, I have to kind of just leave. Otherwise, I start kind of combusting spontaneously. But I do go there a lot for 9-day stays.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I assume you moved over with your parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were they doing at the time that they brought you over here?
It's funny. Like I met this girl from Ukraine who's like, you'll never get an Eastern European asking you why you moved to Australia from Eastern Europe, because it's just duh. No, like I mean, my parents just wanted to move to a Western developed economy. I guess is what it was, and we had a relative here. So it was one of the easier kind of places to base yourself. It wasn't a specific, like, it's not like my dad got an amazing job or anything. He was a factory worker here and in Macedonia. But yeah, no, it was just a general basic migrant story.
Yeah. And you moved straight to Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was school like, I guess, by comparison to...
Oh my God. It was very different. I know that. Like, you know, I was doing trigonometry in year 5 maths in Macedonia, more or less. And then when I arrived to my first class in year 6 in Australia, it was the art class. And we had to draw a baby in space. And it was just like... And I just remember, and I did speak English when I arrived. And it was a case of like, I was told what the assignment was. And I'm like, I'm sorry, a baby in space? And they're like, yes, like a baby. And I'm just like, no, I understand the words of what you're saying. That was not.
It's more philosophically,
I don't get it. It's more just, okay. And when do we get homework and do like, I don't know, things that are useful to life? So yeah, I just remember like you could not get bigger culture shock going from trigonometry to like literally like you douse your hand in glue and just make shapes on paper, and I don't know, it was a very disorienting experience.
It would be a big culture shock.
Yes, it was. But yeah,
imagine going
I guess,
the other way.
I know. Oh my God, I don't want to. Because here at least they're nice to you. Right. In Macedonia, they would not be nice to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't bad, or like, I do appreciate, like, one of the main things I have to adjust is like going from a, you know, post-socialist system, which is very much rote learning of, you know, with set disciplinary, I don't know, it's very traditional, and it's not about like independent thinking or encouraging you to be imaginative or creative, to, you know, the education system that very much prizes you kind of forming your own brain and opinions and things. I think you need a little bit of both, and I'm glad I got a little bit of both. But yeah, no, I prefer going in this direction rather than going back. I do not even want to think about that. That's terrifying. You're going to give me nightmares. You have given me nightmares. I'm having them tonight. Yeah.
Well, it was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah. Yes.
So when was the first time that you kind of can remember wanting to be in the entertainment industry?
I was kind of, I read a lot of books when I was little, before we even came here, and I remember kind of vaguely imagining, like, I did used to write short stories and little other, I don't know, I guess you'd call them nursery rhymes or things. Poems would be way too big a word for it. So I was always very creative, but it was always like, and I remember talking to my parents saying, oh, I'd love to be a writer one day. But they were like, that's something you do on the side. You should also get a job, in the nicest possible way. Like, they've always been very supportive and encouraging. So I guess that's the earliest inkling. And then when I moved to Australia, actually, I started, we got like a half price voucher for like the cinema. And I started watching films obsessively because I had nothing to do. And then started tracking down older films and sort of studying film books, and I just became obsessed with cinema. And then initially I wanted to be a film critic, but again, on the side. And I just never thought like becoming a filmmaker was a viable thing for someone in my position, or that I don't know, I think you'd have to be wealthy for one to sort of pursue something like that. And God knows we never were. But then the first time I became very adamant about it was when I made like the first short film I ever made was in year 11, I think, in high school. So I was 17, and it was a massive production. I'm always very ambitious. And I was just, yeah, I just became very obsessed with it. I'm like, no, this is definitely what I'm going to do, even if I fail at it.
What was the premise of that short?
Oh my God.
What made it a big production?
It was 18 minutes, like, yeah, for one. And it was a cast of, like, let's say 12 speaking parts,
right,
kind of thing. It was about the making of another film. And, like, a lot of, they were very, I like to sort of, you know, even then I was still doing it. I like to kind of create webs of relationships that are kind of toxic to each other and, like, you know, big groups of people that are very intensely connected, which necessarily requires a lot of scenes and dialogue and cast and then eventually locations. So yeah, no, it was massive and it was 18 minutes. And yeah, it was about the making of a terrible slasher horror movie with lots of creative problems. I guess it's terrible. It's so bad.
So it's not on your website?
No. Even if I had a website, this would not be on it. And I don't think any of my like high school friends would appreciate that becoming public anytime. So yeah, no, it's never gonna be on anyone's website.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first one.
But that gave you that feeling of like, oh fuck, this is really cool. I really like this process. I want to see what this is about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was sort of, I mean, as terrible as it is, it's definitely like I created a story with a world in it and like a world of characters, relationships and things. And just, you know, even the side of creating shots and organizing like how people, you know, move in the composition and like kind of finding interesting compositions. Yeah, like a lot of the time you get people who say, you know, there's especially at least in this industry with directors, apparently you're either supposed to be a camera director or an actress director, that you like one or the other. And I find that very stupid. It's like you have two things to do. You can do both at the same time. This is a really stupid separation. Anyway, but no, I always was very excited by both aspects of the filmmaking, even in that shitty first short. So yeah, no, I was very buzzed. I remember before that actually, like we had just done like work experience, the mandatory 2 weeks or whatever, and I was looking at all these law firms. I did do two weeks in a law firm.
Your parents must have been thrilled.
Yeah, they were. But that was also part of the realization of like, no, wait, I don't want to be in Ally McBeal. I want to make Ally McBeal. It was the late 90s. And no, wait, it wasn't. But Ally McBeal obviously had a profound impact on me.
It was the dancing baby, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh my God. You could connect that to the baby in space I had to draw at age 12 as well. Like, wow. No, we are so digging deep here. This is terrifying. I wonder what else we're going to uncover.
Stay tuned. So aside from Ally McBeal, what sort of films, I guess, were you watching when you went to the cinema?
I love that Ally McBeal is now a foundational text of my creative life.
Yep.
You put it there. Yeah, look, I would not deny it, I guess. Well, it was a combination of going to see things in the cinema, but also tracking down older films. You know, most of the films I would have seen in that year would have been like on VHS, quite frankly. And it would have been like Sunset Boulevard and Some Like It Hot and, I don't know, The Seventh Seal or whatever. I do remember actually going to Video Busters, Thomastown, when I was like, I would have been 13. And I just found this list of like the top 100 films ever made. So I was trying to track them down. But I'm pretty sure that was the only time a 13-year-old went to Video Busters, Thomastown to say, do you have a film called Les Enfants du Paradis? I'll spell it. LES space ENFANTS. And I did spell, they did not have that film, it turned out. But then the second one I was looking for was the Battleship Potemkin. And again, I spelled Potemkin. They did not have it, but Video Busters Coburg had it. So they brought it in for me to watch. So that was the film I saw when I was 13, 14. Yeah, in terms of things at the cinema, I'm just trying to think back. I used to love, I think I'm supposed to be embarrassed about it now, but I used to love Shakespeare in Love. I think that was an amazing film. And I still think it is an amazing film. I think the best writing in at least English-speaking cinema ever happened in 1930s Hollywood when they did screwball comedies. And I think that's the closest we came up in the 90s to like a classically constructed screwball comedy. I love The Thin Red Line, and I still do, and that's still my favorite film of the 90s. LA Confidential. I was obsessed with American Beauty. That was my favorite film for a long time. Actually, 99 was a great year because you had American Beauty, Being John Malkovich, All About My Mother, Almodovar's still my favorite living filmmaker.
Are we still allowed to like American Beauty?
Oh, I definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't freaking write it.
That's true.
Come on.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I am very much a separate the art from the artist person, and not because of convenience, because I happen to be an artist, but it's just like, I mean, really, I recently read a biography of Barbara Stanwyck, who's my favorite actress, and just like, it was by no means a salacious scandal searching kind of piece of writing. It was a great piece of writing and very kind of capturing the era, like both politically and in terms of the entertainment industry of the time. But like every time she brought up a director, and often one I would have admired, like, you know, there's a rape story or there's some kind of horrific abuse. So it's sort of like, I think Frank Capra was one of the people that was mentioned as, like there was a pretty bad incident that seemed, you know, I'm pretty confident it would have taken place. And so that means you kind of like It's a Wonderful Life either. And it's just, I'm sort of like, no, I'm sorry. I have to separate the art from the artist, because like pretty much all male artists were kind of horrible. So that means we have to just delete all of art up until like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, basically. So,
and this podcast is 21 minutes old. So the first minute's gone.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right, because, well, I don't know. I guess it's a very thin line, and it's a very hard sort of conversation to have in one sense.
But I'm also specifically referring to kind of work that's a bit older now. You know, like in terms of supporting the work of currently working filmmakers, it's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Like, I don't feel like Frank Capra's films now need to be deleted from
The lexicon.
memory. Yeah. Or, well, there's other names that are way more obvious that we could bring up, but yeah.
Yeah. So, watching these films, making your own sort of shorts sort of towards the end of high school, was going somewhere like the VCA, was that always like, that's where I'm seeing myself moving towards, or was it more an evolution?
Well, I only found out the VCA existed when I was in year 11, after I just made that short film. And from the moment I found out it existed, I was like, okay, that's what I need to do in life. Just get in. And I applied, like, while I was in year 12, I applied and didn't get in. And then when I did creative arts at Melbourne University instead. And then at the end of first year, I applied to VCA again, didn't get in again. And then second year, same thing. And then I didn't even like get shortlisted or anything. It was just like knocked back in first round. So 3 years in a row, I got knocked back. But then I applied for the postgrad when I was first eligible for it, and I got into that, luckily. And yeah, thank God I did, because I can't imagine like getting anywhere, at least in that context, with the kind of personality I am and the kind of filmmaking I do. Like, I really feel like I needed that on my CV.
Yeah. And what were your parents happy, supportive?
Yeah, no, they have been. Like my mom will say, like, I've just been, you know, since age 4, I was a stubborn child who would get into very detailed and convoluted debates, and just, you know, you can't throw me. So she knew that once I had my mind set on something, it was just like, you're not gonna convince him otherwise. So yeah, no, look, from that first short film through to the one I just finished for Lexus, like, even though for once I actually had funding now, you know, my mom was doing the catering, or like my dad would have been doing the location scouting with me and stuff. I didn't drive, and I still don't drive. I actually still haven't become an adult, technically, in many ways. And yeah, like, they've always been very happy, and they're very disoriented now that like it actually went to a place that, you know, I've become kind of successful and I'm like winning awards and getting work. And I mean, they're very happy, but they're still like, is this really happening? It just makes no sense. but yeah, no, they've always been very supportive. And like, I'm very lucky to have like parents who, you know, I'll call my mom or dad on like, let's say Sunday evening and say, Dad, I need a live chicken in a shopping trolley in an abandoned parking lot next to Victoria Park train station tomorrow at 7 p.m. Can you bring one? And he will. He will find it. Like, this has happened. I'm like telling you, like, and I knew, and it wasn't like I was calling you in a panic. I'm like, no, my dad's gonna find me a live chicken. I'm sure of it. He will track one down. So yeah, on top of location scouting and catering and things, like I could always rely on my parents for like
standby props.
Yeah, standby props. Lots of other things.
Yeah. And so I guess the process of then going to VCA was, it was sort of all on you. There was no, you weren't having to sort of contend with anything else. It was just about going to this school and getting the kind of post-grad education that you were hoping for.
Yeah. I remember that was one of the times of my life where I've been the most relaxed, because I felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm in the right place. My, you know, I don't know if I could call it a career, but my career is going in the right direction. And like, you know, it was my chance to kind of make the films I wanted to make with support for the first time ever. So I could write more complicated premises, because I knew I didn't have to just rely on my random friends to be the actors. And my friends are not actors, at least at the time they weren't. Now a lot of them are, ironically. But yeah, I felt like, I don't know if education was, I don't know if I would even call it an education. It's sort of like, it's an environment where you can kind of make films and meet other people who are doing it and watch them do other films. And then like, it's a chance to sort of, yeah, become a filmmaker. And I sort of firmly believe with film school, it's about what you bring to it, not what someone else can teach you. Or like, if you learn something from someone else, like that's a bonus and you should feel very fortunate. But like, I didn't go in there with any particular expectations, I don't think. I'm pretty sure I would have bitched about like everything, every aspect of it, because I was 21. And that's what we all did. Like, we would get together at lunchtime and just bitch about everything that's wrong with VCA, and like, you know, it could be so much better.
What was the main bone of contention?
Oh God, who remembers, man? Like, I've got early onset dementia. Like, I'm not gonna go back that far. I don't know what it was. It wasn't very interesting or relevant or true. So yeah. But no, I remember that time fondly, and I feel like I got everything I should get out of a film school. So
do you still collaborate with some of the people that you went to VCA with?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I definitely send my stuff for feedback to people from that time, and vice versa. You know, I was telling you earlier, I had only had 4 guests at my wedding. One of them was a classmate from VCA. And yeah, I think, again, I was lucky to be part of a group of people. We all got along very well. And even the people I've sort of kind of semi-lost contact with because we're living in different countries or whatever, I know if I run into them tomorrow, we can still have a very nice, very intense conversation. You know, I still think back to all those people quite fondly.
Yeah. And coming out of school for you, was there a kind of, I guess, culture shock about stepping into the industry? I mean, I know for me, when I finished film school, like, they don't kind of prepare you for what life outside of film school's like. It's just all about making your little short films and building your education, and then off you go into the world. And it's like, well, wait, what?
Yeah, in terms of like actually getting work, there were no skills. And I mean, I don't know if you can teach those things. Again, it's sort of like, it's such a complicated, at least in my experience, it's a very complicated thing. Yeah, no, I told you, like, I was feeling very relaxed being at VCA, feeling like I'm on the right track, and the moment it finished, I stopped. That feeling disappeared forever. I've had chronic anxiety ever since, basically, and I don't even think that's an exaggeration. Yeah, I still felt like I had, a few more years to sort of like try and write things and do something before I could like start panicking that my life is going on the wrong track. But so I had about a year or two of like, I was like, no, it's fine, I'll just do my day job and whatever, and just write and sort of try and generate material.
Because most of the stuff that you've directed is your own writing as well, isn't it?
Oh, almost all of it. Yeah. I've kind of collaborated with some people a few times, but even then I've basically co-written it or adapted it very much to fit my voice.
Yeah.
Nowhere Boys actually was the first time I directed someone else's writing,
Right.
full on. And again, I had a lot of script input, which is good. But still, it was someone else's writing. You know, it wouldn't have been mine. But yeah, no, most of the time, and again, that was partly born of a reality. Like, no one's gonna be like, "Oh my god, did you graduate with a master's from BCA? Here, take my screenplay, and here's my money." Like, you just, unless you're generating your own projects. Or spearheading things, like no one's gonna come and give you anything. So yeah, no, I was sitting around writing things and doing my day job, and I did some traveling and stuff that you do. I was 23 when I graduated as well. Is the other thing here.
Still a fair bit of life to live.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it at the time. I mean, like by 25, I definitely felt like time was running out. So
Yep, I can relate to that.
yeah,
Gotta get my first feature done by the time I'm 26 or
I
27.
know, fucking Orson Welles spoiling it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Ugh. But yeah. Like, and then so I had those 2 years of sort of just generating stuff and getting nowhere, no one answering your emails. Yeah, that's probably not. I mean, yeah, that's not time I would look back on without a surge of panic randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be an auteur kind of filmmaker, or was it just something that happened because you felt like you needed to be, like you say, generating your own work?
I didn't set out going, I'm going to be an auteur, but like, even just that term, I don't know that, like, it's just, I think any director who's half decent and makes films, like, you have a recognizable voice, but also other people contribute to what you're doing. I mean, I don't know, like, I think I sort of like the term auteur gets disparaged in some ways and fairly, and then in some ways unfairly. Like, I sort of get a lot of input from people I work with as well, but ultimately I do feel like the creative decision needs to be mine as to whether it's accepted or not. But in terms of, I definitely had ideas of what I wanted to explore and stories I wanted to write in a certain way, and no one else was going to write that in the way I would have wanted to. So that was the part of the reality that, you know, made me like write and then direct that stuff. And usually by the time I've written something, I'm too attached to it for someone else to be allowed to touch it, so to speak. But I was always very open to directing someone else's work, and I still am. Like, I read a book recently I would love to adapt. And, you know, even if I wrote the screenplay, I would still feel like that is someone else's writing that I'm directing, essentially, because I would just be shaping it for the screen, which to me is basically direction more than writing anyway. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think any director that's half decent is an auteur, but I think that term comes with connotations that are a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, it's not a very inclusive term.
No, yeah. Well, I guess that's the issue. Like, a cinematographer like Emmanuel Lubezki is also an auteur because his voice is persistent through, like, no matter who he works with. So I maybe the term needs to expand to include people from other professions within the filmmaking side of things. But yeah, I would just see as an auteur anyone who has a voice that's consistent no matter who they work with.
What sort of things do you feel like shaped your artistic voice?
Well, I mentioned anxiety
a couple of times.
Yeah, interestingly. What a coincidence. I don't know. I'm not very good at, like, it's such an instinctive process, and then you sort of, once you've finished something, you try to think back and intellectualize it, to try and find connections. But well,
like your latest, the short that we were talking about, sort of, you know, at the beginning, Would You Look at Her? You know, that's got a very strong female lead in it, and, you know, she's quite an antagonistic sort of character as well, and I would imagine that these sort of characters are probably consistent through your work.
That's true. Like, almost, especially the last like 6-7 years, almost everyone I write or create is like a sort of what I'm told is an unlikable woman protagonist, and I'm just like, and what about that makes them unlikable? Because it's basically me as a girl, like, which
Right.
is not that different from me as a boy, incidentally. Yeah, no, I do, but it's not really like, I don't really. Partly, okay, yes, I was driven ideologically by, I remember reading the statistics like 7 years ago that something like 75% of speaking roles in Hollywood films were male, and I'm just like, that's ludicrous. Let's do something about this. But also, just in general, like, if you ask me who's my favorite actress, I will come up with a list of 30 names, and I would struggle to like, and I will be with extreme fervor. I could tell you how much I love them and why, and struggle to narrow it down to like 5. Whereas if you ask me who my favorite actor is, like, there's a lot of actors I like, but I get a lot less passionate. I tend to relate much more intensely to female characters on screen, but also in real life, I've always bonded with women much more quickly and much more intensely, with exceptions, obviously. I sort of don't really approach things in that categorical sense of, I just have to write female characters or whatever, but it's just lucky that my interests in life tend to align with ideologically pure visions, I guess. But yeah, no, just because I do tend to relate to kind of very strong-minded, strong-willed anti-heroines.
Like which sort of, I suppose, women or actors are you thinking of specifically?
Oh, good God. Well, let's just stick to the living ones, because otherwise I'll be here all day. Julianne Moore, pretty much every French woman, like Marion Cotillard, Isabelle Huppert, Emmanuelle Devaux, like Juliette Binoche. Oh my God, why did I not say Juliette Binoche first? Obviously.
We'll edit around it.
Okay, right,
I'll
yeah.
like,
I think this conversation needs to open with the words Juliette Binoche, and then just go from there. And then others like Amy Adams, Sally Hawkins. Again, I could just go on for a really long time. But also, like, yeah, you said it's a strong female character, but I don't really set out to write specifically a strong female character, whatever that word might mean. I'm sort of interested in a perspective. I tend to relate to the person I'm writing, whose perspective I'm writing from, and I just want to kind of capture that perspective and her way of seeing things. Because I usually find I have a lot in common with that. And it's usually a person who doesn't kind of fit, societal role that's been ascribed to them. And that can be something in the sense of, like, in Would You Look at Her, the lead character is lesbian, but and in a small town conservative setting, but so that's an obvious way that she doesn't fit a social norm. And her behavioral, like, she does not fit the female, kind of preparing you for motherhood and marriage role that is usually ascribed to those girls. But like the character I've just written for the film that's going to play in Sydney, the 25th short film, like, that's a woman who's struggling with the concept of motherhood, being a mother, like how that's supposed to define her behavior and life and interests. And like, again, it's not that I want to attack any of these kind of traditional roles. It's just more like there's a certain way you're supposed to behave, but it just naturally doesn't fit you even if you try. And that's what I tend to relate to. Yeah.
Would You Look at Her as the film that won the jury prize at Sundance as well. And also you went back to Macedonia to film that one. What was the, I guess, sort of 10-year period? Well, we've spoken about 2 of the years that were anxiety-induced, but the next sort of portion, what was that like to kind of getting to that point of, getting this this Lexus grant as well as going to Sundance and things feeling like maybe they were clicking into gear for you?
That's only been like 2 years. It's the last 2 years ago, I won Best Director at Sydney for a short film. And then I made Would You Look at Her, which just got the Sundance Prize, and I won Lexus in between. So that's just in the last 2 years. Before that, like, it's dire, if you look back. And anxiety did not stop at all. Like, I think it just escalated. I don't know, just scrounging, trying to make connections in the film industry, I did a lot of note-taking on TV series.
What do you mean by note-taking?
Well, when there's a writer's room of people plotting out a TV series, there's usually like 7 or 8 writers, and they just have a person who's a note taker. And sometimes you can contribute a little bit, but you're not supposed to be talking. But of course, it's hard for me to shut up at the best of times. So I did a little bit of that. But in terms of, I didn't, for like the first 8 years after VCA, I barely even made any short films. Because I kind of had made so many, like, by that point, I think I made 20. So I didn't feel like I don't know, I should be having to make any more. But
felt like you wanted to evolve beyond.
Yeah, and even just like trying to think of a narrative that could fit in like less than 20 minutes was problematic. Like I was writing a lot of feature scripts or coming up with ideas that were clearly feature. Even the short films I was making towards the end of VCA were like clearly not fit for a short film format. Like the stories were too big for what I was trying to do, and trying to cram them into, it was 25 minutes, my master's film. So yeah, like just trying to make inroads, send my screenplays to people, and then like a couple of them were optioned and then went nowhere, and then same with like TV show ideas, a couple were optioned, went nowhere. Yeah, like it's very easily summarized that like 8 or 9 year period is just like the most failed filmmaker that ever failed, is how I just described those 9 years.
Yeah.
And even so, the film that won Sydney Best Director was 2 years ago. That was called You Deserve Everything, and that was in June that it screened, and I would have finished it in like August the year before, and in that like 10-month period, I couldn't even convince anyone to watch it. Like it got rejected from 30 other festivals. So, and I had made 3 short films in a row at that point within a 6-month span to try and, update the show reel and show that I can do better things now. And again, they weren't getting into festivals, no one was watching them. And then that one got into Sydney, and suddenly everyone decided they want to watch my films. And I had a whole bunch of them that they could watch, obviously. And they're like, do you have any other projects that you're considering doing? And I'm like, yeah, again, 20. So, yeah, it just changed from there. And, like, that film went on to play at, I think, 60 festivals now it is, and the others as well. And, yeah, the last 2 years have been very disorienting after the previous 10.
I mean, you kind of make it sound like, in a way, that it's accidental that you get to this point and suddenly when there is interest, you've got all these projects ready to go, or that you can kind of refer to. And maybe you didn't quite plan it that way, but how important do you think it has been for the last 2 years to have had that sort of 8 years almost of just building a body of work, even though it like probably felt like you were hitting your head against a wall?
Oh, look, extremely. I mean, I joke that no one should have to make 25 short films, but because I have, when I was directing my first TV show, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it was kind of easy. In a great, like, not easy, it was still very complicated and challenging, but like I did not feel overwhelmed at any point. Yeah. Even when like circumstances kind of made it a bit more complicated than it needs to be. But it was a wonderful experience, but I don't know. And even people on set were like, it doesn't feel like it's the first time you're directing TV. And I'm just like, yeah, because there's my generation of filmmakers were actually like extremely overqualified now. Like, because we've all made the 20 short films and like have had to put up with making work without any financial support or even crews most of the time. So it becomes, you are building skills even when you're stagnating in terms of like, I definitely felt like my career was stagnating for 10 years, or probably like declining, I would say, rather than stagnating. It was going downwards, not in a straight line. But yeah, no, I was directing. I was making a lot of short films, and then every single one of them, I think, I did benefit from, even the shit ones, especially the shit ones. And yeah, then I spent a couple of years unemployed, and that again, what do? You have to do something. So I was writing a lot of features in that time. So that now, when I'm talking to people and they're asking me about projects, I'm like, yeah, there's a whole slate. And usually, someone emails me and they'll say, so do you have any features? I'm like, yes, I have 10. Here is a summary of all 10 in the attached document. They'll be like, oh, wow, that's a lot. Are they all finished screenplays? I'm like, yes, they are, because I was unemployed for a really long time. So yeah, there's been a benefit to that, and I think it's actually, as much as 26-year-old me would probably disagree, but I think it was beneficial that the opportunities I get now that I didn't get them at the time, because I don't think I was fully formed as a filmmaker by any means, as a writer or as a director. So having had to kind of scrounge for as long as I have and sort of create my own opportunities and put up with like really difficult and challenging situations, I think I've benefited from it creatively now.
I suppose it's in the same way that a place like VCA generally won't take someone straight out of high school because they don't have a few years of life experience to then sort of be shaped. Similarly, unless you're extremely lucky or right place, right time, or have the right relative, you're probably not going to get a job working on, directing TV or a film until you have that kind of adequate experience behind
Although
you.
you have touched on something that I don't feel like we emphasize a lot in the film
Nepotism.
industry. Yes. Oh my God. Not just here, in the UK as well. Like,
And the US, I'm sure.
oh my, yeah, probably. I don't know much about the US film industry. So it's sort of just like, I feel like 70% of emerging filmmakers who are getting anywhere are like related to someone, and like often they're very good. And that's why I don't even want to say specific names.
I'm sure it's across every industry, really.
Exactly.
I'm sure it's not film, but
No.
it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting paradigm, because if I had kids that decided they wanted to work in film, and I had built myself a successful career to a point where I could go, well, I'm not going to give you a job as a director on a film that I'm producing, but if you want to go and make people coffee and, do a week of work experience or come and, I feel like that's something that I would want to give. But then at the same time, like you say, you kind of culturally start to lose something if it's kind of the same families or the same voices or the same whatevers that are being heard. Particularly, I think, when it comes to government funding and those sort of opportunities.
Absolutely.
I don't think. I don't.
Well, it's a systematic thing as well. Like, that's why it's not about a matter of individuals. Because as if you don't, I mean, I'm definitely not going to have children. Oh my God, I'd be the worst parent. But no, but if I did, like, of course I would be like, yes, my child's going to be the runner on this production, or like, because I feel like she or he would be capable of doing that job for one, confidently. But oh my God, if I had a child and that child had a driver's license, that would be so interesting. Because I'm like, I don't even know if I'd be the parent in that situation. But anyway,
it seems like a good reason to have a child.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. This has been a very inspiring chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so like, that's why I don't think it's fair to like blame individuals in that case, or even, the child, like, what's he happened to have been born to like creatively successful people. So does that mean you're not allowed to make films now? Like, it's not fair to put an onus on any single person, but like when it becomes a pattern, I don't know. I wish there was some way to sort of address that by giving other people who are not related to filmmakers opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. It's a very, I guess it's a very strange kind of paradigm to tackle. Did you ever go? When you're talking about being a runner, I was thinking about, there was one point where I was, it was probably about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago, where I felt like I really wanted to be working as a director and kind of take a step up to do, a director's attachment or something, but I couldn't get a job doing that, and I was just like pulling my hair out, and I'm like, fuck it, I don't want to go do hospitality work. I've kind of done, worked in a cinema for however many years and done whatever. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go and get a job as a runner. At least that way I'll be working on set. And they wouldn't hire me as a runner because they said I was too experienced and I would get bored.
That's so funny.
So I couldn't get a job doing what I wanted to do because I didn't have enough experience, and I couldn't get a job doing the other thing because I had too much experience. And it's just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
No, that's the problem. Like, I was never qualified to be a runner because I don't have a license. Again,
no, okay,
I never had that problem. But I got the note taking thing.
Yeah,
that's actually the interesting part. Like, I always felt that my first breakthrough in the industry, if it ever would happen, and I wasn't convinced that it would be as a writer on that I would get to write an episode of a show, after working on it. Well, actually, I was the note taker on Nowhere Boys for 4 years, and 4 seasons. So I would have thought I'd get the writing gig, but then when I won the award and it said Best Director, people started looking at me as a director more than a writer, even though I'm pretty sure those awards were handed out a little bit arbitrarily. There's just like, the jury liked these three films, and it's like, okay, well, let's give this one short film, this one director, screenplay, But I was labeled as director from that point on, so every time anyone has spoken to me about anything, it's to direct something, not to write it. Even though I would argue the writing in that film is way better than the direction. So the direction is not very good. But never mind.
But it was the best that year.
Yeah, no. If anyone asks, that's what you should say. Yes. But yeah, no, that's the problem with directing. Like, it's kind of, even if you're a runner, though, I don't really see a clear line to going from that point to directing.
Well, that's more going towards producing, I would think.
Definitely,
because you're going into the AD world, really.
Exactly. In that sense, yes. But I think that's partly why it's so hard to break through. It's like you can't be an apprentice. You can do an attachment or several, but still, it's very easy to make creative decisions by sitting around and watching someone else fuck up, and you can decide what you would have done better. But like when you're in the middle of the situation, it's a very different experience. And I understand why a producer would be like not that keen to just put any random attachment, promote them to directing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you kind of have to work your way into it by generating your own material somehow while, being a waitress essentially, because how the fuck are you making money in the meantime? And yeah, I don't know that I feel very lucky to have kind of ended up in this position now where I'm getting this work, but
I mean, it's a grind as well. It's not like, I think that kind of luck is a cross section of, you've worked this hard to this point. Now the opportunities are starting to come your way, and you're prepared because of all of that time and experience. You're ready for those, like we've been discussing the whole way through.
Yeah,
it's that kind of building that body of work so that then you're prepared for these moments.
And also, people kind of would know me by now as well, even though I was just a lowly assistant or whatever. Like, I've met a lot of people just from working on various projects. And so, if my name pops up in a newsletter as an award winner, they would connect it to... I mean, that's why people wanted to watch my film after it won an award. They already knew me, and they're like, oh, we didn't know that you were literate, What? So, I'm kidding. And, like... Fair enough, because in terms of like trying to support new voices, like, I mean, there's probably 8,000 people who are qualified for this one piece of work you can offer, and they're all probably really good. So it's like, how does someone stand out? It's like, oh, well, I know that person. They're pleasant, 20-minute conversation, and now they've won an award. Let's look at it. Like, it's sort of, I think there's also that building a network and meeting people helps as while you're also doing that daily grind of
being in the industry is very valuable as opposed to sitting outside it and writing in a dark room.
Oh, completely. Like at the same time, like I do remember thinking if there was a way I could do a day job and just occasionally get a project off the ground, just a feature for a few months at a time, I'd be fine with that. Like I don't have like a burning desire to just be on set for the sake of being on set. Like I love being on set as a director, but I don't really necessarily, I don't think I would enjoy it just being there as an AD or something like that.
I've done that and it's great, but it's also like,
I used to like it when I was much younger and I was new to set, but now I'm like, okay, I'm not learning anything. And this is, I think,
and you want
the
to be
person
in charge
who rejected you. I mean, of course, you would be bored as a runner. Like, there's no. But I'm just sort of going like, yeah, but that's beside the point. I'm also very bored as a waitress. Have I told you that? It's like I don't think that you're understanding what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And what was it like to go to Sundance? Because that's like one of those kind of filmmaking meccas. Not only to go, but to actually win a huge award as well, and to kind of be in the midst of to be in the midst of that, whilst also kind of having got this award, or not this award, but this grant from Lexus, which I think is given to 3 people a year or something.
Yeah, 4, but 4. Yeah. And I got the Screen Australia grant at the same time as well, so it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had like 15 years of not even being nominated for stuff to suddenly just like winning awards all over the place, and it was just hilarious. But Sundance was intense. Like I think I got like an hour of sleep a night. And I'm not sure I ever had a proper meal at any point, and I had a lot of alcohol. So
alcohol's a meal, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of the time it was for me. And I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, I don't usually live in that way, so it was a very hallucinatory experience, I would say, for most of it. And yeah, the award was nice, but I don't know. I'm actually, ironically, not that much of a believer in awards. I find them quite arbitrary a lot of the time because, again, you have 10 very worthy films and it becomes random who decides, who decides what's the worthiest one. Like, I've never felt like it was a badge of quality to me. It's, again, just very lucky and useful, admittedly. But yeah, I mean, even before it won the award, it was just nice to have people on the street come up to me just to say they like the film, and just people who were just there to watch films. They weren't trying to like give me their card or whatever. Like just that was also disorienting. Oh, you just came up to me to say something nice. That's the end of that transaction. Wow, that's so strange. Okay, thank you, much appreciated. So that was something nice about Sundance. And yeah, it was still happening through to the final day. So it was good, but yeah, and the award was I wasn't expecting anything at all, so I was just having a chat to a random person I just met at that awards night, and it was very crowded and noisy, and no one was really that invested in the awards, I think. Or maybe we all were secretly and just pretending we weren't. But I was like, I don't know, in a state where, I guess, yeah, all the alcohol meals had maybe my focus wasn't in the right space. So I was just chatting to this woman I met, and she was a writer for one of the films in my program, and we're getting along really well. I think she was of Hispanic background, and like for some reason, like that aligns very closely with the experiences of someone who's been raised by Macedonians. So we're just comparing family stories. And then suddenly her film got called for an award, and she just went off, and it was cool and exciting and whatever. And then 5 minutes later, my film got called up for an award, and the next thing is I saw her in the green room, and we were just going, like, we were just having a really ordinary conversation 5 minutes ago, and this is just such a, like, things just changed a lot in the last 5 minutes, and especially in that case, the person who gave me the award is a writer I've been idolizing since literally age 18 when I first started making films. He's a graphic novelist called Chris Ware, and one of my top 10 works of art of all time is a Jimmy Corrigan, which he wrote.
That must have been quite a fucking trip.
Well, yeah, because as soon as they announced, I didn't even know he was on the jury, or I didn't know there was a jury or whatever. I mean, I assume there is, but like, I didn't look up these things. I'm sure my mother would have. She gets obsessed with awards. But so they announced, like, it's initially I asked him as a comic book artist, and I'm like, oh, this is clearly someone cool I couldn't possibly ever know because I'm not very connected to pop culture. But like literary comic novels, oh no, I know those. So when they said Chris Ware, I'm just like, did I hear that name right? And I was like literally Google imaging him to make sure it's the person I'm thinking of, and then comparing it to the Google result, and then I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's, and at that point my name got called out, and I was there with my producer Jess Guerrera, and she just looked at me, and I don't know, I kind of ran up to the podium, and he shook my hand, and I'm like, Chris Ware, as in like, and then I didn't get to finish my sentence. It was as I was giving my speech, I'm like, when you say Chris Ware, like Jimmy Corrigan, Chris Ware, that's who you mean, and he was all disoriented because apparently he's not used to being recognized. And yeah, I was like I said, hallucination from moment one to the final moment of like, I don't know what's going on. And then in the green room, he came up to me to get a selfie, and I'm just like, this is just the weirdest thing that's happened to me in life. He writes these graphic novels, and they're enormous. So he literally makes up a third of one of my bookshelves. Like, yeah, no, I called my husband immediately. I'm just like, okay, so I won an award, but Chris Ware was there. He goes, Chris Ware, as in Jimmy Corrigan, Chris Ware. I'm like, yeah. And
that's what I said.
yeah, basically. So yeah, no, it was a really good experience.
Yeah,
I have to say.
And I could imagine one that opened the doors for a lot more opportunity to sort of come through.
Well, ironically, actually, I didn't get that many emails or people approaching me. Definitely not in Australia, but even internationally. But the ones that did are, let's just say, enough. Like, I feel very, I mean, I wasn't like fielding all these emails or anything. We're talking single digits, but the ones, the people I'm in contact with are wonderful, and that's all I need in life right now. So it was good in the sense of definitely connected me to the people I admire and whose work I admire and I want to work with. But it's not that cliche of like suddenly everyone wants to know you. You're like, no one. The only people who added me on Facebook were random Macedonians. So, although 100 of them. So yeah, no, it was kind of, and that's another thing about Sundance. It was just like both the positives and the negatives are completely the opposite to what you expect. And it's continued since then. Like it's the experience since then has been like very different to what I would have expected a Sundance Award means. But I definitely do not want to complain. I feel like I'm in a good spot.
Yeah, it seems like it. And My Boy Oleg, which is your Lexus film, is premiering at Sydney Film Festival. It must be pretty soon.
Yeah. It is in mid-June.
Yeah, cool. And what's the sort of... I know the last 3 days you've had nothing to do, but what's the... what's the sort of plan?
I was looking at the trailer cut for it, actually, so I had like 20 minutes of work.
So. Oh, yeah. You cut your own trailers?
No, it was... I've never done a trailer in my life. I didn't realize we were doing one. I have a very great producer who kind of... Like, we've come in under budget. When does that ever happen?
Wow.
I was like, all right, Jess, how much do I owe you? 2,000, 3,000, 5,000? I don't have money. Yeah. No, it's it's finished. And she's using the money for festival submissions. Like, it's been, and trailers and things. And I'm like, oh, so someone else can do that. I don't have to. This is amazing.
That's awesome.
I can't say who is doing it because I have a mental blank right now.
Right. You're kept away from those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure she emailed me at one point saying, is it okay if I get these people to do it? And I'm like, yes, that's the extent of my input. But yeah, so someone else is doing the trailer.
Yeah. Does your husband work in film as well?
Oh, good God, no. No, we could not survive that way, I don't think. No, he's an academic. He does research, mainly public health related. But he's also he's at the same time the first person who ever reads my screenplays. He's the only one who's read the one I just finished 3 days ago, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, well, he's useful to me in the sense that he's not from the filmmaking community, but he's definitely from the film audience community. We have a very similar taste in cinema and similar interests. So, and he has no tact whatsoever. So when he reads something of mine, he can be as offensive without realizing he's offensive. But you're getting the full, honest response.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like talking to an ideal audience member immediately. So that's the extent of his involvement in the film industry there. Like, he hangs out with my film friends. None of us know what he does half the time. And then someone will, out of politeness, ask, and you realize, oh wow, what you're doing is so much more important to literally everyone else's life than the shit we've been talking about for 2 hours. But yeah, he's very modest about it. Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you guys meet?
On the train to the same gay bar when we were both 18.
Right. Wow. So you guys have known each other for a while.
Yeah. So he's survived through a lot of short film shoots as well, just by... Yeah, I always tried to keep him away from a film set because I didn't want him. I never wanted him to see me stressed or on the verge of a nervous breakdown. But at some point, he had to start helping a little bit, and he ends up being an extra in a lot of my films, and he's terrible at it. But there's no one else who can do it.
Just looks down the barrel.
Yeah, although I do that too, so I can relate. But it's more just like, Maddie, just walk in a straight line. And then it's like, okay, so rolling up for another take, and he walks. It's like, wait for action. You've done this 10 times. You know to wait for action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's also very supportive.
Yeah. Lots of supportive people in your circles.
I guess, well, mainly just the 3, but yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, Goran, thank you for coming and chatting with me and sharing your story with me. I think it's... it's such incremental kind of movements forward in a filmmaking career. So I guess it's always great to speak with someone who's kind of where it's all sort of clicked into gear, and to get that perspective as well.
Oh, look, thank you. I mean, I hope any of what I said was interesting to anyone, but I'm just like, I don't feel like I've thought through anything of what I said. But okay, yeah, cool. Like and it was really nice to chat.
I finish all of my podcasts with the same question, which is, what makes you silly?
What makes me silly? What doesn't? I don't know. Oh, Jesus Christ! You should have prepared me for this one. I should have put thought into it. A lot of coffee. I end up getting very high on adrenaline very quickly, and I don't control what I'm saying. Coffee. But it also makes me function. It makes me smart sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And creative. So, yeah, caffeine.
Caffeine.
The answer to most of my life.
There's a very good chemical effect for you.
Yes. Or very bad, depending on who you speak to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.